This is Justin with Books, Bricks, and Boards. I'm going to do just a short video today. I've noticed that I have had many videos on boards. I've had a couple videos on bricks, but I haven't really done any videos on books because I haven't been playing any RPGs lately. However, over the last year and a half or so, basically since the beginning of the pandemic, I've played a ton of RPGs. And so while D&D was definitely one of those that we played quite a bit, and I am almost always the DM, GM, whatever the case may be for the particular game. D&D is great, but I think there are some really great alternatives out there. And so today I am going to do a video on my top 5 books being RPGs. One of my rules that I'm going to give myself in this top 5 is going to be that it has to be a self-contained system within a single book. So I'm not talking about other systems where you need 10 or 12 books in order to really play the game or really enjoy it. So I want something that is very powerful and compact. So with that being said, I am going to start with my number 5. That's going to be Monster of the Week by Michael Sands. Evil Hat Productions produces this. And as you can see by the various sticky notes in my book, I found this to be an absolutely fascinating read. Did play a session of it back in March. Very easy to game master for. Definitely advantages of this. Anybody that has ever played a Powered by the Apocalypse game is going to be right at home. Definitely leans heavy into those systems. Very heavy on storytelling, not real super crunchy. Easy to do things on the fly with this. Easy to change your story on the fly. Not a whole lot of stats to track. And I think one of the big bonuses for me on this book is that you have all these playbooks that typically represent some sort of stereotype from the Monster of the Week movie / TV show genre. And so Monster of the Week, definitely one that if you have a week that your group is not going to all be together and you want to throw something together quick that's going to make an impact, Monster of the Week's a great choice. It's also rather inexpensive, $25 by the cover price. Of course, you can get that cheaper if you get it online. I actually bought this from an FLGS. So number 4, I am going to talk about Sentinel Comics. Keep in mind, I've played Champions over the years. I have played a lot of the Face Rip Marvel Superhero role-playing game. I've had the Margaret Weis role-playing game, which actually, the Margaret Weis Marvel role-playing game, one of the designers of that was involved with the creation of Sentinels. For those of you that don't know, this is actually in the same universe as Sentinels of the Multiverse. It has just some beautiful art. The style is very evocative of those 80s, 90s comic books. And I think that the two things that set this apart for me and make it my favorite Supers RPG are the character generation process, which has many different options. You can pick everything from scratch yourself. You can randomly generate, but it has the best random generator I have ever seen. There's just enough flexibility. You roll a few dice and you get to choose from a few different choices with each pressure point in the selection process, even if you go random. The other thing that sets it apart is the mechanic system of the game, whereas you are choosing 3 different categories and you get a dice from each one of those categories to take whatever action you want, which makes everything flow really fast, and it naturally just describes the action you're doing. So it makes this a very flavorful take on the super genre, and it doesn't worry itself with static numbers like most of the superhero games do, which means that you can play your Punisher alongside your Silver Surfer. Power levels aren't really a concern in that game. So Sentinel Comics is my number 4. My number 3 is going to be kind of a cheating choice on my part. This is Castles and Crusades. The reason I say I'm cheating here is because I said that I would keep this to only 1 book. Well, this is the Castles and Crusades flip book, which together has everything that you need to play a game of Castles and Crusades. Castles and Crusades is loosely based on 3rd edition D&D, but with an eye towards Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons. So basically what this does is it takes away all of the bloat from 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons, and then it takes the clever innovations of 3rd edition and combines that with the design philosophy from 2nd edition and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Things of note, for Castles and Crusades, they use what's called the Siege Engine. The Siege Engine is a very simple skill system that replaces the need for a robust skill system. There's also a ton of supplements out there, but you could have a ton of fun just in that book there. And you can basically use, with very minimal conversion, any of the older editions of Dungeons & Dragons. You can use any of their supplements, probably 3rd edition and lower. Probably you could use 5th edition stuff pretty easy too. Now my second, I am going to say, is, other than Dungeons & Dragons, the game that I have GM'd the most in the last couple of years. Dungeon Crawl Classics is another game that is loosely based on the 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons system, but whereas Castles and Crusades tries to get rid of the bloat and make the system simple, Dungeon Crawl Classics tries to make the system gonzo. It doesn't add a lot of complexity, but it does add a lot of variety, and Dungeon Crawl Classics is definitely a game that is great for one-shots. I'm not sure I would like it as much for a campaign play because of the wide range of variability on outcomes. You can quite easily nuke an entire town as a 1st or 2nd level spellcaster on accident. So there is a push your luck mechanic with the spellcasting, and every spell in this game actually has a full table. Like this ventriloquism spell has 2 pages of results based on what you roll for your spell check as to what it actually does. That's not unique to ventriloquism. Every spell has that. So a simple or seemingly simple spell can really have a huge effect if you get into the upper tiers of the results, which is quite possible even for a low-level character if they're able and willing to sacrifice a little bit of their statistics. The great thing about Dungeon Crawl Classics is that it really brings home the feel of the old swords and sorcery pulps. I could easily see myself playing through a Conan the Barbarian adventure with this. Magic is dangerous, magic is powerful kind of thing. So again, that's number 2 on my list, Dungeon Crawl Classics. And then finally, number 1, and this is a relatively recent find for me. I knew of its existence because, I played a lot of 2nd edition, and Monte Cook was a big name during that time, 2nd and 3rd edition. So the CYPHER system is actually born out of Numenera. Numenera came first, and then people looked at that and decided, hey, this is a very strong system and could be easily applied to other genres. So this is actually the newest edition of the CYPHER system rulebook, and I found that it was a absolute joy to run. I saw the strength in the flexibility of the system immediately, and I think that the folks over at Monte Cook Games have really outdone themselves on this. There's so much flexibility. Just with this book, I could easily, within a day, just sit down and create a series of adventures in any genre, and it would be both fun and believable and simple to teach. Everything's based off of a D20 roll, and the reason it is called the CYPHER system is because they have these minor magical items called ciphers that are typically one use and have varying impacts on the game. The different genres handle them differently. So in a fantasy campaign, they might be a potion or a wand. Whereas in a more modern and more grounded system, it might just be some knowledge that you picked up that you can use to your advantage one time. But they have mechanical effects that you can take advantage of. But the thing that is great about it is with a simple D20 system where the same mechanic applies to all actions, teaching and learning this is very easy, and the number of statistics that you have to track is very minimal. Creating a new monster or even villain on the fly is very quick and very effective. And everything in this book is about creating the experience for the players and making it more about the narrative than about the stats. So CYPHER System is my number 1 book for my list of my top 5 books. Now that being said, I have an honorable mention which actually led me to the CYPHER system. My honorable mention book would be Quest. If you have not played Quest yet and you like fantasy RPGs, this is similar to CYPHER except for much lighter. No kidding, the entire concept of this game can basically be summed up in a single page. This is the game. That's it. That's how you do everything. Everything else in this book just kind of tells you how to take advantage of that very simple system. But I would highly suggest, especially if you have kids that you want to introduce into the hobby, Quest would be a great way to do that because it's very simple for them to understand, and there's a lot of really fun, fantastic elements to this game. So that is my honorable mention. And then, of course, this is my top 5 with Monster of the Week, Sentinel Comics, the Castles and Crusades flipbook, Dungeon Crawl Classics, and then number 1, the CYPHER System by Monte Cook Games. Right now, all of these systems are in print. The Castles and Crusades flipbook you cannot find currently, but you can actually buy a full complement of the Castles and Crusade core rule books for less than what you would probably pay for a single player's handbook of the new edition of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So still very affordable. So that is my top 5 books for books, bricks, and boards. This is Justin. Good gaming, and God bless.